How will the Israel-Hamas war impact the global market? According to Reuters, if the Israel-Hamas war escalates into a broader conflict, it will cause a shock to world growth, gender and hinder anti-inflation efforts. That escalation could lead to rising oil prices, alarm about oil supplies and the possibility of a recession, said Hamza Meddeb, director of the Political Economy Program at the Malcolm H. Kerr Carnegie Middle East Center in Beirut. Global economic recession. Here are some scenarios. 1. Iran and oil prices. The possibility of Iran becoming more involved in the conflict in Gaza as well as the U.S. response in increasing sanctions on Iranian oil are attracting attention. A crackdown on Iranian oil exports could almost immediately remove about 1 million to 2 million barrels per day from the market, said hedge fund Cayler Capital founder Brent Belote. In the unlikely event that the United States sends troops to the Middle East, Mr. Belote predicts oil prices will spike by $20 at least. Oil rose more than 2% to more than $92 on October 18 and increased 7.5% last week. From October 1973 to March 1974, when the Yom Kippur War occurred, leading to Arab countries issuing an oil embargo against countries supporting Israel, oil prices increased by more than 300%. Israel now has better relations with other Arab countries than it did then. And global oil supply is no longer concentrated, noted strategist Madison Fowler at J.P. Morgan Bank. Nadia Martin-Wigan, director of commodities investors Cayler Capital, added that regional conflict would disrupt oil tanker routes in the Mediterranean, Black Sea, and around Turkey. 2. Inflation suddenly increased? Currently, the wave of inflation has subsided and the trend of increasing global interest rates is about to end. A spike in oil prices, which hit $139/barrel after Russia launched a military campaign in Ukraine last year, could halt the downward trend in inflation. In another worrying sign, gas prices rose 45% last week. Mr. Alessia Berardi, head of strategic research at asset management company Amundi, believes that if Iran participates in the conflict, it means the possibility of commodity prices will be more expensive and is the cause of the conflict, leading to less deflation prospects. Long-term market gauges of US and Eurozone inflation show inflation remains above the 2% target. The next challenge may arise for bond investors. The US S&P Composite Bond Index is currently 14% lower than its January 2021 peak. 3. Stronger USD? Demand for a safe haven asset has boosted the value of the USD, pushing it to the equivalent of 150 yen, and the Swiss franc just had its best trading day against the euro since January. Any move to reduce global risk could strengthen the yen as Japanese investors withdraw money, said Trevor Greatham, head of wealth at Royal London. 4. Emerging markets. Israel's currency, bonds, and stocks have been affected by recent fluctuations, as have those in Egypt, Jordan, and Iraq. And Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Bahrain are also affected to a lesser extent. After the past few difficult years, the Israel-Hamas war has contributed to a decline in sentiment in emerging markets. Mr. Jeff Grills at Aegon Asset Management warned that an escalation in the region could easily cause oil prices to increase by 20%, hurting dozens of oil-importing countries that are already facing financial difficulties. 5. Technology market fluctuations. What's good for oil stocks can be bad news for tech giants. MSCI's gauge of global technology stocks has moved against oil and gas stocks in 2022 as the war in Ukraine pushed up oil prices, raising inflation concerns. Greatham at Royal London said that pattern could repeat if interest rates in the US rise again to stem the inflationary impact of the latest conflict. Potential disruption to infrastructure also needs attention. Deutsche Bank notes that Egypt is where many transcontinental cable routes cross. At least 17% of global internet traffic passes through this route. Meanwhile, airline stocks may suffer, while defense stocks may rise. Since the October 7 Hamas attack in Israel, the MSCI Airline Stock Index has fallen about 5%. Aerospace and defense stocks were nearly 6% higher. Additionally, environmental damage from the Russia-Ukraine military conflict is increasing in Ukraine, with experts warning of long-term consequences. According to the Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF, Over 280,000 hectares of forests destroyed or cut down due to conflict have released toxins into the air and groundwater, threatening biodiversity, climate stability, and human health. People's health: at least 65,000 square kilometers of agricultural land is degraded. UK Environmental Inspectorate RAIN in December 2022 reported that the conflict with Russia had contaminated more than 291 million square meters of land in Ukraine and littered over 8 billion square meters in the country, causing an estimated $12 billion in damage to land resources. The impact of wars and armed conflicts on the environment and human health has not yet been fully quantified and evaluated, but the consequences it causes are enormous. Not only affects the health of the people and the environment of the countries involved, but also affects the life of the entire planet. This is one of the causes of climate change and global warming, destroying the ozone layer, making our living environment gradually lose its sustainability.